So, my friends, what is the best WrestleMania match of all time? Well, I, Simon Miller, have figured it out using science. Because essentially what I did is I took the best rated WrestleMania matches from Cage Match and then went on my social media at simonmiller316 and I put the vote to you, and we put these top 10 against each other, and I had fun with one of the bouts because I am an idiot. So now we're going to sit down and go through the results. There is an asterisk. I did not include the WrestleMania 20 match between Chris Benoit, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H. I've been doing this long enough that most of you do know I just struggled to talk about one person in that match for obvious reasons. Doesn't mean I'm right, doesn't mean you're wrong. You can get mad about this, you can throw your arms up in the air. That's just how I feel about it, and I never want to be dishonest, and I never want to be untransparent, which I believe is a word. So that's all it is. If you want to criticize me, you perfectly can, but I've got to go with what makes me feel right. What I did as well is I took the match at number 1, I put it against the match at number 10, and then number 2 against number 9, etc., etc., which means, as I go to our vote over here, the first one was Steve Austin versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13, taking on Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon from WrestleMania 10, which was the infamous ladder match. Now, something I knew that we were going to run into here were the big star effect or recency bias, although none of them were actually super that recent. But thankfully, if that's the right word, from my vantage point, 83.6% of you voted for Austin versus Bret, and 16.4% of you voted for HBK versus Razor. Now, as ever, comparison is the greatest thief of joy, or whatever that phrase. I do agree with that, but this is still fun. And as far as I'm concerned, Austin versus Bret is not only the best WrestleMania match in history. I don't want to say it's the best match in history, because that's an unfair way to say it. It's my favorite match ever. It cemented my love for Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret Hart until this day. I mean, Bret Hart is usually number 1 and Steve Austin is usually 1A, but that can switch around as well. But it's just the fact that it's an incredible way to sell somebody on the idea what wrestling is, because Austin walks in as the bad guy, Bret walks in as a good guy, they flip versus roles. Ken Shamrock is in a special guest referee, but doesn't overpower anything. It's brutal, it's bloody, it's violent, it's a submission match. It doesn't even matter that Steve Austin doesn't have a submission because of the way they sell all of this. And it's no real surprise that today people hold Bret in such high regard, and at the time why people started going crazy for Steve Austin, because it's all right here. Now, of course, people like to think that he cut the Austin 316 promo and all of a sudden became the biggest star ever. That wasn't true at all. It was what he did after that and what he did on this night when all of a sudden the signs in Austin 316 became absolutely massive. And let's not forget, this is one whole year before he even won the WWF title. So it's a long old road for the Rattlesnake. And I don't want to take anything away from Razor Ramon versus Shawn Michaels as well, because again, that's a context match. At the time, it was absolutely incredible, and nobody had really seen a ladder match if you were just watching the World Wrestling Federation at the time. And actually, a lot of the ladder matches were done between Bret and Shawn on house shows, different video for a different day. But you kind of struggle to watch it now if you've only been watching wrestling for, say, 5 years, which is perfectly okay, by the way. Don't let those negative Nancy's get to you. There's no rhyme or reason to how you want to start watching wrestling. But because we have seen so much crazy stuff, you have to delete so much from your brain in order to understand how shocking, for lack of a better term, this was. And it's like a chicken and egg scenario. Well, not really. But this match needed to happen to even get to something like a TLC 2, or to get to something even like Mick Foley versus The Undertaker in the Hell in a Cell in 1998. It all kind of begins here on the WWF wagon, but I totally understand if you've just watched a crazy ladder match in NXT on a Tuesday night and then you go and watch this. Well, we moved on, we've grown. It's okay though, because Austin versus Bret goes through to round 2. The other one was Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker from WrestleMania 25, obviously the first match they had there, going against TLC 2 at WrestleMania 17. I did do this on purpose. I thought, well, that would be fun, because I thought there may be some hardcore junkies out there that would vote for it the other way. You didn't do that. Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker got 63.5% of the vote, and TLC 2 got 36.5% of the vote. Now, that TLC 2 match is also responsible for what we see today. I think they did so much crazy stuff there. This sort of lives more alongside the things we are doing in 2025, but it also gave birth to a lot of them as well. So this was like 2001. So obviously Mick Foley had done his thing years prior to this. But it is absolutely crazy. The spear off the swinging thingamajig that Edge gives Jeff Hardy, totally crazy. But there are bumps through ladders and tables, obviously so many chair shots. Matt Hardy does one of those leg drops that we knew was going to screw up his back. You can't say this didn't work, because all of them became bigger stars after the fact. And listen, it's in the flipping Cage Match's 10 best matches ever. Or maybe that was number 11, but you take my point. But Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, the first WrestleMania WrestleMania 25 match was one of those when all was said and done, they were like, it should have been the main event. We didn't think it was going to be that good. And while it's not mine, I would imagine the general consensus is that this is not only the best WrestleMania match ever, but one of the best matches of all time. And of course it is. It's absolutely brilliant. The chemistry that Shawn Michaels and Undertaker had was unparalleled. There's only a few other duos that have been able to match it. I mean, even years prior when they did the first Hell in a Cell at Bad Blood 1997, that match is a banger too. And I actually think I prefer that one to this one, but just because it was a different time and the story was different, this one is still excellent. And it's incredible because, of course, before Shawn Michaels 2.0 came back, and Mark Calloway, the Undertaker, has talked about this, he didn't even like Shawn Michaels, and that's when you know you have, like I say, a certain chemistry with someone, and why this match was probably so good. I'm sure they did have encounters before this, but it was their first big one since all of that switcheroo, given that it was WrestleMania. And if now all of a sudden they were on the same page personally, surprise, surprise, it then explodes. And we may as well move on to the next one because it kind of does tie in, which is Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker WrestleMania 26, the retirement match. And I put that against Triple H versus The Undertaker WrestleMania 28, which is an underrated gem. Now, I actually think that both Triple H Undertaker matches are very good. The Hell in a Cell one is the best one, just because it has that amazing kick out of the, when Shawn Michaels is a special guest referee, and I was like, oh. But both of them are really good, and the first one tells a great story in the sense that The Undertaker won, but he's the guy that gets wheeled out of there, and Triple H is standing tall. And again, Undertaker told that story too. Vince McMahon didn't like it. My Undertaker can't look like that, but thank goodness they got it through, because it adds so much more to it. But Shawn Michaels retiring. Now, listen, again, comparison's a thief of joy. That's the phrase. 25 is my preferred one to 26, but you have to look at this like the OG and the sequel, and together, they're absolutely amazing. And there is no way that WWE would have put this on last if they didn't think they'd be able to live up to it, even with Shawn Michaels' retirement. Like, even if there was a seed of doubt, like, we can't do this, it's going to take away from the allure of the one 12 months prior. You do put it on the semi-main or first or whatever you want to do. But with the retirement and the knowledge that everybody had, this is going to be brilliant. They made the right call. And because I'm a nerd, I would say if you are about to sit down and watch Taker versus Shawn at WrestleMania 25, just back-to-back it with WrestleMania 26. That's the best way to do it. Make sure you watch all the video packages so you get the build. It's just so well done, and you get the overall emotion of Shawn Michaels losing and having to retire. And let's face it, no matter what your thoughts on the man were at any point during his career, he obviously is one of the best of all time. This one seemed awfully unfair. This must have been the match that was in number 11. It was the Intercontinental title three-way at WrestleMania 39, Sheamus versus Drew versus Gunther. Absolutely deserves to be that high up, by the way. It's brilliant. And again, it was nice to put that in there because, again, it's a recent one. But they were taking on Austin versus The Rock from WrestleMania 17. To a certain fan base, WrestleMania 17 is always going to be the greatest event of all time. And there is reason for it. It's a terrific event. Obviously, it kind of ends on a downer because Steve Austin turns heel. But it was 2001. We don't need to worry about that anymore. We can start moving forward and just, look, we made a mistake. These things happen. I would always rather that you did try these things. I mean, Austin versus The Rock, given they had a trilogy at WrestleMania, and 15 and 17 are sort of just below this list, they're all brilliant. 15 is sort of fun because they have already established what this brand new Attitude Era main event is going to be, and The Rock is just all over the place doing a bunch of crazy things. 19 has the sentimentality that is Austin's last match. So this one that comes slap bang in the middle, I mean, it's the height of the Attitude Era, so the WWE is super popular. It makes all the sense in the world why people love this event. Sometimes I think that WrestleMania 38, I want to say could be better because, again, I'm doing that thing. But in terms of a WrestleMania that came recently, that one is off the chart. The Cody Rhodes return, the Steve Austin return, which, of course, you need this to get to. But I don't want to ignore the Intercontinental title three-way as well. Austin versus The Rock got 73.5%, and the IC title three-way got 26.5%. But not only did that three-way help establish Gunther and establish the IC championship and establish the story with Sheamus. Sheamus and Drew had their WrestleMania moment, even though it was in a three-way, a triple threat. It's just an excellent match, and it's hard-hitting, and it's brutal, and it has a great finish. And I remember watching it live, and I was just emotionally engaged, and really that's all wrestling has to do. So I'm glad we got to talk about it. It's not better than Austin versus The Rock for my money in terms of what it means to me, but it should always be in the conversation. And we had Bret Hart versus Owen Hart WrestleMania 10 and HBK versus Angle from WrestleMania 21. It was the closest of the lights. HBK and Angle did win with 58.5% of the vote, and Bret versus Owen with 41.5% of the vote. I mean, this is why votes like this are dumb, and we should all be ashamed of ourselves. But we get to a fun conclusion at the end. They're both terrific. They're both awesome. You don't get Shawn versus Kurt without Bret versus Owen. There's kind of a thread running through all these things. And I think Bret versus Owen at WrestleMania 10 is an opening match, right? Got to be the best opening match in WrestleMania history. I'll be forgetting something now. But it's right up there. And it's absolutely ridiculous that Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels weren't allowed to do more in WWE. They didn't have that many matches. This was their biggest one. But again, you have the best of the last generation against the best of the current, at the time, new generation. I mean, what can you even say about it? It's a technical masterclass. It's creative. It's fun. The near falls. You can get sucked into it now, even though you know who is going to win. And I suppose, listen, I love Kurt Angle's work in TNA. I think that's underrated too and should be spoken about more. But if he was able to sort his personal issues and kind of do more within WWE, these two probably would have got back together again, and who the flub knows what we're going to talk about now. But yes, it was super duper close. And of course, Owen Hart is another guy. I mean, what happened to him is one of the most tragic things, not just in wrestling. I mean, just growing up is one of the most horrible things I experienced as a kid, because Owen Hart was a hero of mine, as was Bret Hart. Like, that's why it was so cool to watch them fight together. And it had the story too of the brothers falling out, which leads me to the best tale. And so many people have confirmed this. I do think it's accurate. When Vince McMahon was pitched this, he said, but brothers don't fall out. So he was most definitely insane. Right, okay, so we move on to round 2. And I was a right asshole, because I didn't want both of these to get to the final, because I'm a bad person. So I pitted HBK versus Taker 25 against HBK Taker 26. I don't want to say I was pleased about this, that's ridiculous. But 68% went to 25 and 32% went to 26. And I just think it's a couple of things. First of all, the first one just makes the duo match, whatever you want to call it, better. And I think there's something unexpected about it. Going into the second one, we all knew, well, it's going to be great. We saw what they did last year. And you knew the result, I suppose, because The Undertaker wasn't going to lose his streak and Shawn Michaels was just ready to retire. That's why they were doing it. Whereas while the shock and awe, or the tease, I should say, wasn't actually as good as that Hell in a Cell with Undertaker and Triple H, there were times during this when you started to feel it. I remember in your tum-tum, like, are they going to give it to Shawn Michaels? Which seems crazy because he's Shawn Michaels, right? He's already a Hall of Famer back there. But it did have that magic to it, and I think that stays in your Tootsie Toes when you go back and watch it now. But also, again, just there's something about it. There's something about, I'm not sure anybody went into that going, oh, they're going to have the best match of all time, which is the same for Austin versus Brett all the way back in 1997. And when you don't put that expectation on it and then it totally blows things out the water, it just rules. Now, actually, the story going into 26, you could argue, is better because Shawn Michaels has that amazing Royal Rumble experience that is just drowning in story. But I'm with you, my friends. If someone put a gun to my head, which would be totally unnecessary, I would have picked WrestleMania 25 too. We also did Austin versus Rock at WrestleMania 17 against HBK and Angle at WrestleMania 21, 61.2% for Austin and Rock, and 38.8% for Angle Shawn Michaels. I mean, this is much of a muchness, right? They're two completely different experiences. You have one that kind of waited for the Attitude Era to die, and then all of a sudden we're like, man, we need to wrestle again. And the other one was pure entertainment, pure showbiz, pure sports entertainment, if you want to call it that. And there's no right or wrong here. They're both excellent. I need both of these in my pro wrestling. But I would have plumbed for Austin versus The Rock as well. Again, I was a kid during all of this. Austin was just the best person I'd ever seen. We were already all in love with The Rock because everything that he had done. So getting to see them clash, and the build and the Limp Bizkit video and the interview beforehand with Jim Ross, it's all time stuff. It just is. And you can bring in any promotion, and in terms of promoting a match, everybody would be desperate for this. And sometimes when we do have a big matchup and it doesn't really compare to this, you hear people going, why don't we just do what we did back then? Which is a great question, but I just think we've moved on. And in many ways, you could argue the shows Raw and SmackDown are way better now overall as they were in the Attitude Era. When you do go back and watch some of them, this isn't very good. But thankfully they had Austin and The Rock, hence why they're here. Now, of course, I screwed up my bracketing here because, again, I'm an idiot. There's no two ways about it. So I just threw Roman versus Cody at WrestleMania 40 in there to go against Austin versus Brett because I just knew that Austin Brett would win. But I wanted to see how many votes a brand new recent match would get, because don't forget, if you've only been watching wrestling for 2 years, that probably is your favorite match ever. It was awesome. The back end when everyone runs in is so quintessentially WWE. How can you not love it? But it did get blown out of the water. 29.3% for that and 70.7% for Austin versus Brett. And before we do get to our final, that will always be my one. There's no other match you can put up against it, even throughout non-WrestleMania history, I don't think, I'm pretty sure that's true, that would make me go, yeah, that one was better, because a lot of it is right place, right time. And listen, that's why do you think John Cena is beloved now, even though he's turned heel? It's because people grew up with him, so they love him. They forget all the back and forth and the let's go Cena sucks stuff. It's the same with Roman Reigns. People will be doing that soon. Like, that's always the way. Whoever the guy was when you're growing up will be the guy forever. So if John Cena was your guy, he's better than Austin. if, Brett was your guy, you know what I mean? It just goes on and on. We don't need to do this because I'll miss somebody. But anyway, we get to the final, and of course, it's a triple threat match. Ties into WrestleMania 40 because we're going to get a lot of multi-mans. And I think it was pretty close, all things considered. That's how it felt to me. But in third place, it was Austin The Rock, WrestleMania 17 with 26.7% of the vote. Austin versus Brett is second with 31.6%. And HBK versus Taker at WrestleMania 25 is the winner, the greatest WrestleMania match of all time at 41.7%. Now, I certainly don't think that's a bad pick. I think it's a very good pick for the reason we've just outlined. But I do wonder if it comes down to an age thing, because there's probably more people that experienced that match as it was happening than Austin versus Brett, which almost happened 30 years ago. I totally get this, and I like the fact that the first one won between HBK and Taker. I do believe that WWE just released a video of them talking about it, like doing reaction videos to it, like we sometimes do here with my wrestling matches, which is super duper whooper cool. But I actually think as a 1, 2, 3, that's probably quite accurate, all things considered, and now I can't remember how it ties into cage match. Interestingly, their top 3 were 1, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 25, 2, Brett versus Steve at WrestleMania 13, because I know them now, and number 3 was Bret Hart versus Owen Hart, so there you go. Now, of course, you're going to be mad at me for some of the things that I've had said. I just thought it would be fun, and you don't need me to sit here and go, here's my top 10 WrestleMania matches, although I am going to do that too. But as you are down there, again, comment, like the video, share the video, subscribe, click the notification bell, click the video on the screen right now to hear me give you my super early WrestleMania 41 predictions so we can all last at me in a few weeks. Otherwise, ingridofmine.com/Simon. You go to Simon to get money off your supplements, and you get extra money now as well, but it's always 10% off everything. I just did my order today because I'm a super good boy. Patreon.com/Simon316, Simon316 on social media. What's the other ones I've got? ProWrestlingTees.com/Simon Miller, Simon@BigCartel.com, and Simon J. Miller for TikTok, and Simon for Cameo. Cheap videos at the moment, I think like $7 because Cameo is doing a sale. Happy to do a video for you. Otherwise, enjoy the build to WrestleMania. Enjoy SmackDown. If you have just watched it, I'm recording it before that, but then I have to drive to Newcastle for a wrestling match, so I probably won't talk about SmackDown tomorrow, but we'll be on Ups and Downs for What Culture Wrestling. Everybody calm down. Goodbye.